beautiful day for a ball game today. The fans are out to get a ticket or two. From Walla Walla, Washington to Kalamazoo. It's a beautiful day for a home run, but even a triple's okay. We're gonna cheer and boo and raise a hullabaloo at the ball game today.
The Chicago Cubs are on the air.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jack Quinlan, along with Lou Boudreau, speaking to you from Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, where tonight the Chicago...
Glenn, when did you first become aware of Jack Quinlan?
Well, I had just started going to the games and listening to the games. We got a transistor radio. They just kind of came out, around 1957, something like that. And my mother took me downtown and spent $37 on a transistor radio. But boy, did I love that radio. And I'd take it out. We'd play ball ourselves, or we'd be out in the street playing stickball or doing whatever it was we did in Chicago. And we would have the radio. And so that's how we would play, and we'd listen to Jack. We'd practically act out what he was announcing. It was so much fun.
Here's the 1-2 pitch to Billy Williams. A swing and a long drive, deep to right center. Well hit. Center fielder at the wall. Home run! Home run! Hey!
And by the Gillette Safety Razor Company, maker of the new Gillette Slim Adjustable Razor. Remarkable super blue blades that give all but unbelievable shaving comfort. Foamy, the cream of all instant lathers. And Right Guard, the new power spray deodorant for men. We're here in Wrigley Field, Chicago, and in a few moments we'll be all set to bring you the 33rd game in this All-Star Series. Whenever the All-Star game returns to Chicago, as it has today, it means that it's coming back home. Chicago is the city where the All-Star game was born 29 years ago. And Chicago is where the 33rd game will be played here at Wrigley Field, the home of the Chicago Cubs of the National League. Beautiful baseball weather in Chicago. If we'd ordered this 6 months ago, the weatherman couldn't have smiled any more than he has done today. Perfect for baseball, for the players and the spectators. Not an empty seat in the ballpark, folks. It's loaded. Right around 40,000 here today. The first time the All-Star game has been played at Wrigley Field since 1947. Here's the stretch and the delivery. Swing and a drive. Well hit. Way back. Maris back. He's near the wall. He caught it in the vines. Here's Grote going back to first. Robinson pinned Roger Maris to the wall in left center field, and he was in the vines when he caught that ball between the 368 and the 400-foot marker. A tremendous shot by Robinson and a fine play by Roger Maris. Now they're 2 out with a man on first.
Glenn started going to the games by himself around 1956, the year Jack Quinlan began broadcasting Cubs baseball. Transistor radio in hand, like all of us kids in those days, Glenn spent about as much time, especially between innings, gazing up into the WGN radio broadcast booth to try to get a glimpse of Jack Quinlan and Lou Boudreau. They always seemed to be having so much fun on the radio.
The Cubs are quartered at the Maricopa Inn, which is just 2 blocks from the ballpark. So it's a very convenient and leisurely stroll over here, although Boudreau has driven it every time he's come over. I don't think you know how to get here, Lou, if you had to walk. Ball 1 and strike 2.
On the pregame show, one of the youngest shortstops in baseball, Reese, talking to one of the oldest, Lou Boudreau. Here's the pitch, high and outside. Ball 2 and no strikes the count, or is that just the opposite, Lou? 2-0.
Could be just the opposite, John.
This first portion of today's game between the Cubs and the Indians has been brought to you by the Serta Mattress Company, makers of fine bedding since 1878, the year that Boudreau broke into organized baseball. Remember, there's no sag in a Serta, so let a Serta support you on the level.
But I'll back that statement too, Jack.
And Lou's appetite remained a constant.
But we used to be staring up there all the time. It was to get a glimpse of Jack and Lou and see what they're saying to each other, see if they're looking over at each other and stuff like that. And Lou always had a pile of food in front of him, and and Jack would always point that out.
You know, a lot of people write in and want to know if Boudreau really eats as much as I claim. And now Randy Rosen has found out for himself that I do not lie about that. 2 balls a strike. Actually, he eats more, but I call him like I see him. Here's a curveball that's low, gets away from the catcher. There goes Johnson to third. He makes the turn to third, and Bill Adair holds him there. It's a pass ball. It got away from Bertel. Also, the picture in Chicago's American of you and Randy out at the house. I recognized you, Lou. You had an onion on your hamburger.
Every baby boomer who grew up in Chicagoland would have envied Glenn Norgren in those halcyon days. Why? Simple. Glenn pretty much came up in the backyard at Wrigley Field, about a long Ernie Banks opposite field home run away.
Well, I grew up on Foster and Clark, which is not too far from Wrigley Field. So I could take the bus there or the L. But the great thing about it was my Aunt Lucy, lived on Wilton Avenue between first base and the scoreboard. So if you hit one over the L station, you'd land in her house.
Oh,
But I could, as a young kid then, I could walk over to her place after the games.
none of the balls ever landed in Aunt Lucy's laundry, but one day things did fall into place for Glenn.
Another time I was sitting in the front, right next to the Cub dugout, and the little kind of a chopper came over toward the wall, and I leaned over too far and fell into the field and grabbed the ball and jumped back into the box seats. And then the Andy Frayne usher was coming to take the ball away from me because you're not supposed to go on the field. So all the people around started yelling, "Oh, let the kid have the ball." So I couldn't, I just can't describe the feelings that you have. That wasn't even my seat. We used to sneak into the box seats after a while. We'd keep an eye on empty seats or places where somebody went home in the 7th inning, and we'd work our way down. And so the ushers knew we did that. So it was kind of, they let us get away with it.
Were you allowed to keep that ball?
Yes, I was. The usher just said, "Oh, all right," and he just kind of walked off, and there I was smiling with my ball.
Oh, and he started collecting seat cushions at game's end.
And we could perpetuate ourselves because if you helped the guys clean up at the end of the game, they'd give you a free pass. So this went on day after day. And we go out there, collect 15 seat cushions at the end of the game and turn them in. And there would be a nice, the guy would be with a stamp and he'd stamp the thing and just tear it off the pad and hand it to us like a prescription.
Let me ask you this. When you were a kid, you told me a story about waking up in the morning, looking out the window, opening the window, and doing what?
That's it. The first thing you did was look to see which way the wind was blowing. Is Ernie going to hit one?
Yeah.
And then you had these other guys that came onto the team. Ron Santo came up a couple years later, and but you had these sluggers all the time. Dale Long and Lee Walls and Billy Williams, of course, but that was a little bit later. They had about 5 guys in the lineup that could knock the ball out of the park.
And by the way, a 12-year-old Glenn Norgren had sneaked down to the box seats the day one of the most famous games in Cubs history was played. And in a small way, he became a part of it. The no-hitter twirled by Don Cardwell in his very first game in a Cubs uniform.
Cardwell has retired everybody he's faced ever since he walked Ramis with 1 out on the first.
Well, it was an amazing game for one thing. It was the second game of a doubleheader, and of course, it's gradually getting dark. In fact, the whole game only lasted, I think, an hour and 42 minutes. And I was in my usual spot in the grandstand, and I kind of worked my way down from the first game and got probably into that seat pretty much by the second or third inning of Cardwell's game, and it was going along really fast, and I couldn't believe that you could hear the ball smacking the catcher's mitt. Cardwell was so fast that day. It was unbelievable, and he had just been traded for. I think this was his first game, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, he and Ed Boucher came over, and Ed was playing first base.
1 ball, 2 strikes. The pitch on the way. Lined right field, deep. Well hit, open at the wall. He's got it. One-handed catch. Oh, hey. 1 out of the ninth.
And of course, when you're at the game, there's no announcers, so this thing is all coming over you, and it's your own personal experience with it. And I'm getting more and more nervous, and guys are just making outs left and right.
That's a well-hit ball, but it's in the field. Ashburn backs up. He's there. Richie has it. Oh, brother. 2 out.
Finally, by the time there were 2 outs in the 9th inning, I had my foot already up on the wall. I could just plunk the heel of my foot just on the top of that wall, ready to jump over. And suddenly their line drive rang out to left field. And I said, "Oh no!" And here comes Walt Morin, not noted for his fielding. He was a great home run hitter, but he wasn't exactly noted for his fielding. And here he pulls off a shoestring catch like you wouldn't believe, just off the tops of the grass.
3 balls, 2 strikes to count. 1 more pitch could end the ball game. You know what kind of a pitch we're hoping for. The dark one, blow it past him, Don. 3 balls, 2 strikes, Cunningham waits. Cardwell into the windup. Here's the biggest pitch of this ball game. Lined into left field. Here's Morin coming. He got it! He got it! No-hitter! Oh, made a great thing, Baker's catch. A no-hitter for Cardwell. His teammates are mobbing him. Cardwell's teammates are pounding him to death. Listen to this crowd.
And just the whole place was absolutely stunned. It seemed like time stopped, and the next thing I knew, I was on the field heading for the mound, and I probably got there before some of the players did. And you could still see me now jumping around all around the mound. I think on YouTube there's a couple of clips up there.
Now let me ask you this: I watched the Cardwell clip, and I saw a couple of kids. There's a taller one with dark hair and a shorter one with blonde hair. Which one?
I was the dark-haired one.
You were the tall one jumping around like a maniac.
Yeah, but I wasn't that tall. I'm a short guy. I was only about 5'7", so somehow I looked like I was taller. I suppose I was one of the first people that the camera picked up out there that didn't have a uniform on.
And I saw the Andy Frayne usher trying to reach after you too.
Oh, I don't even remember that. I just remember getting jostled because I was right in the middle, and these players were a lot bigger than I was. And I remember Ed Boucher stepped on my foot practically, but everybody was just so damn happy. Nobody cared. We were just. It's amazing how these thrills can stick in your mind.
And Jack Quinlan made every inning of every game he ever broadcast sound like the World Series, didn't he?
Long drive, deep to left field. It's out of here. Boy, he could call them. He was just so natural and so able to describe what was going on so you could really see it in your mind. And as I said before, we take those radios out with us because, before transistor radios, you had to stare at a big piece of furniture in your living room to listen to the radio. And then all of a sudden they got smaller and smaller, and then you could take them out portable radios. So we were active kids. We were playing ball all the time, but we had that radio in the street with us.
We also had it under the pillows with us at night when the Dodgers were playing in the West Coast.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jack Quinlan, along with Lou Boudreau, speaking to you from Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. They went to the Dodgers moved and played in the Los Angeles Coliseum, was only 251 feet down that left field line. So Cubs could get up there and just smack that ball right over the fence. Lee Walls used to do that. I think he hit 3 home runs in one game one time. But yeah, we'd hide under the covers with that little radio and listen to those games, and I would just kind of fall asleep to Jack's voice, and he'd get excited and wake me up.
Outfield plays Somoli about straight away. Hobby goes into the stretch, arms down. Watch Reese. Here's the 1-1 pitch. Swung on, and there she goes. A long drive that's going to be out of the ballpark. Up into the seats, a home run for Somoli. The Dodgers lead by a score of 2-0. Well, Lou, I think that would have been a legitimate home run in a lot of parts. It went over the left center field 320-foot sign. Here's Somoli coming around, touching home plate behind Reese.
I just never thought anybody was near as good as Jack Quinlan, who was able to just put that game right in the conversation.
Here's the windup now by left-hander Padres. The pitch on the way. Curve swung on. Bouncing ball to the third baseman, Gray. He's got it. Here's the long throw, and it's in time, and there's 1 out. Taylor's out from Gray to Hodges. In the booth just to our right, and there is a very thin partition between the 2 booths, is the Spanish-speaking announcer, Buck Cannell, who is sending the broadcast down to Mexico. ¿Cómo está usted? So
he could announce matter-of-factly and emphatically all at the same time. I don't know how he did that. Just a smooth transition. In the middle of a sentence, he could change his whole mood. If, say, well, there's a ground ball right through his legs in the center field.
Here's the windup now by Padres. 2-2 pitch on the way. Fastball. He struck him out to retire the side. Banks goes down swinging. Strikeout number 1 by Padres. And for the Cubs in the top of the first inning, 3 up and 3 down. No runs, no hits, nobody left on base. We go to the Dodger first inning. Hobby will face Pee Wee Reese, Gino Somoli, and Duke Snider.
And somehow it often gets back to that incredible partnering of Jack and Lou.
Back and forth between Jack and Lou is another thing. I assumed all the announcers did that, but I never heard anybody with that kind of relationship before.
No,
they try to do that now in the national broadcast. They get maybe 3 guys in the booth, and they try to do that, but they can't. They just kind of take turns delivering their ideas.
Whatever you need or want today, shop the well-known brands. They're on display at Weebolt.
National reputation brands are your biggest value at Weebolt department stores near you. Lou, since we've been working with Weebolts this year, I'm learning more about women's clothes every day. Now, for example, do you know what a shadow panel is?
Well, old chap, I haven't the foggiest. What is it?
Well, it's a lining they put in women's slips.
And they have these slips at Weebolts?
Ooh, do they?
Say, don't ad-lib, just read what's on the script.
Well, Kaiser makes them in nylon, and it's light as a feather. These slips are edged with lace at the top and bottom. They sound great, huh?
They sure do.
Oh, mercy. That's the last one of those we'll get all summer, I bet.
And of course, we can't ever tell the full Jack Quinlan story without the hilarious relationship between Jack, Lou, and WGN's morning man, Wally Phillips. To Jack and Lou, Wally was so cheap he wouldn't give a worm to a blind hen.
Wally was probably the most popular disc jockey in Chicago at the time, and he had this gimmick where he would start a sentence and then he would finish it by playing a spot or half of a song or something like that. It would kind of finish his sentence, and he was really good at that. And Jack used to tease him about it. And so they would go back and forth about mostly how cheap he was, Wally. When they'd come up to Lake Geneva to visit him or something like that, he wouldn't take credit cards, I think Jack said. It was cash on the line, all And Lou would, of course, play right along. He'd agree with that.
You know, Lou, the thing I noticed that was strange last night was the fact that Phillips' house was the only house in the block that had parking meters in front of it.
That's right, Jack. And listen, I don't know whether you noticed it or not, but all electricity was turned off at 9:30. I don't know what he was saving that for.
Yeah, I noticed that they cut the juice off pretty early. Here's the pitch. I was surprised also last night, Lou, that Phillips didn't honor any of those credit cards. When the check
Not a one. It was all cash, Jack, all the way.
Here's the 1-2 pitch. Inside, ball 2, strike 2. Count is even. First place I've ever been in where the hat check girl refused 50 cents. She said it's $1 minimum. 2 balls, 2 strikes, the count on the batter with a man at first and 2 out. Ellsworth goes into the stretch. 2-2 pitch to Torrey, swinging a hot smash, past third, another base hit down the left field line.
Of course, as much as anything, I wanted to know if, like so many of us, Glenn felt Jack Quinlan deserved enshrinement in the Baseball Broadcasters Hall of Fame in Cooperstown.
Ron, I can't believe, until we started this little interview process, I thought he was in the Hall of Fame. I had no idea. And I'm so thankful that you've done this. I thought everybody was that good. And boy, when I grew up and moved away to New York, was I surprised that all the announcers I was hearing after that just never measured up ever to Jack Quinlan.
Skinner on first base, 2 gone. Turley's 2-1 pitch to Nelson. A swing and a wild from deep to right field, way back. Hey, it's a home run, over deck.
There's nothing like Jack Quinlan. Why he's not in the Hall of Fame blows my mind. It really does. I thought he was in there, and I just couldn't believe when I found out that through you and your efforts that he wasn't yet. So we got to get this thing done. Got to get it done. When I was first starting to go out to the park, I found the press box, and there was a ramp going up there.
Yep.
And I used to watch for the guys, Brickhouse and Quinlan and Lou, and I didn't know any of the other guys, but you'd see guys going in and out of there. And every time I would see Jack, boy, he would be heading for that press box like it was like his last meal was there, and he would be wearing a Cub jacket, and that really got me the most. That I know I see a lot of pictures of him now wearing a suit and tie, but I don't remember him that way. I remember him wearing that Cub jacket and sitting in the booth announcing those games.
He was just ready to get behind that mic, wasn't he?
You could tell he was a real fan, and he made the listeners fans too, just by his genuine appreciation for every minute that he was behind the microphone. And I know that if there's any kids listening right now, remember, we're still here, and we remember those games, and you will too someday, and we just hope that your experiences will be as enjoyable. But let's get Jack Quinlan into the Hall of Fame.
Why this feeling? Why this glow? Why the thrill when you say hello? It's a strange and tender magic you do, Mr. Wonderful, that's you.
Here's the 1-2 pitch to Billy Williams. A swing and a long drive. Deep to right center. Well hit. Center fielder at the wall. Home run! Home run!
Why the joy when you turn.
Well into the windup. Here's the biggest pitch of this ball game. Line into left field. Here's ball coming. He got it. He got it.
Mr. Wonderful, that's you.
Swing and a drive, well hit, way back. Maris back, he's near the wall. He caught it in the vine. And here's the pitch. Fastball swung on, well hit, way back, deep to left. It might be gone. It is a 3-run homer. Rocky Colavito just drilled a Dick Farrell fastball onto the catwalk in left field, driving Robinson in from third, driving Maris in from first base. And now the American League is leading by a score of 7-1. Turley's 2-1 pitch to Nelson. A swing and a